Can you give us a brief outline of what your worksheet's about, just so we've got an understanding of where we're going?
I'm doing a sort of daily lesson course at the moment, and I think today's one talked about that if you keep yourself invisible, then no one can see your needs, and if you, unless you're seen, no, you can't tell people your needs and so on. So I realise that's a theme for me, that I keep myself invisible, and it's just to sort of work on that really, because it's been a theme for a very long time, and I would like to step into the light. Obviously, I'm scared, but I would like to be seen so that I can communicate, my, just my talents and to genuinely share things.
Right. So, is there anybody in your life in particular that this plays out with, that we could do a specific worksheet? Is there a person?
Interesting.
It might be a boss, might be a lover.
Yeah, I think it could be in every aspect of life, but probably it's probably more difficult in a working with thing. Well, no, it could be in a personal relationship as well. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I've gone invisible again.
Okay. Well, we're here to support you being fully, completely visible.
Okay. I think I hide from myself as well.
Yeah. And notice that we're a safe space for you to do that. And one of the reasons we hide is because usually we have a stored experience of it not being safe.
Yes.
And that's what you want to access and forgive.
Right. So, I do know the experience.
Tell me more about that. What does that mean for you?
I just, at primary school, I got sent out of the class every day for about 2 years, and I just used to hide in the coats. And because if you were seen outside of the classroom having been sent out, then if a teacher head teacher or somebody walked past, then you got really rollicked. It was not nice. So you just hid. And I'll just do that really. That's a bit of a theme for me.
Sounds like a good worksheet. So it sounds like then the core of this issue is the desire for safety.
Yes, that sounds reasonable.
Want to be safe. Okay. So you put your name in number 1A and acknowledge yourself as love. So I, who am love, am feeling. So what are the feelings that come with this? Here I am hiding among the coats, and if I'm seen, I'm going to be
probably told off, really, judged.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the feeling on that?
Very much scared, yeah, and shamed, really, shame.
Okay. So if there's fear and there's shame, that would be 2 different worksheets.
Yes.
And so seeing as how fear came first, let's start with the fear one, and I'll suggest that you plan to do, after we complete this, do another worksheet on exactly the same situation, and do that on shame. Okay. That will be a whole different, in order for the mind, when you think of how amazing it is that this mind is so powerful. I'm sitting in a room right now where my brain shows me a clock sitting over there. It shows me a light. It shows me a television set up in the corner. It shows me a computer. And like, it's really got me, like, I could easily believe that I'm seeing all those things out there, as opposed to there's enough data about those things firing in me that I recognize my mind is generating literally that whole world that I see. In order for that to happen, there's a huge amount of data going on under the surface to produce that. And so what we're going to do is thread by thread, and the data is based in thoughts. The data is based in mind energy. It's interesting, if you go to the opening words in the book of John, and we'll talk about the ancient scriptures here, and they're presented to us as something religious, my background's in electronics, a side study in physics. And as a physician, when I first came in touch with the Aramaic translations of these words, what struck me is this hasn't got anything to do with theology. This is just how the mind works. This is how physiology works. This is how energy systems work. This is about physics and physiology and psychology and genetics. So getting to the reality of it. So if you listen to the opening words in the book of John that the churchianity folks told us says, in the beginning was the Word and the Word became flesh, you know, what does that even mean? If you go to the Aramaic, what it says is in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh. Literally, when I think of thought, what the cell biologists are now showing us, when I think of thought, that thought becomes a molecule inside of my energy field. That molecule circulates around in my structure until it finds a receptor site with a cell that matches. When it lands on that cell, it inserts itself inside of the cell energetically. And if we were looking from inside the cell, what we would see when that neuropeptide lands on the receptor site and inserts itself, what we'd see coming into the cell would be what we call chemistry. Now, it's all energy, but this is mind energy literally showing up on what we call a physiological level as chemistry. And so not only is it becoming what we call the chemistry in our structure, but it's becoming the construct. It turns it into the constructs that we see. So what we're going to do, thread by thread, is learn to develop the skill of being able to access that neuropeptide that perhaps has been there for 10 generations, or perhaps happened to me when I was 7 and in the cloakroom, or I stepped out for the first time and somebody raged at me or whatever. What we're looking to do is to be able to access that mind energy, be able to decode it, and throw it away. So that literally that chemistry of fear that's in the cell has been removed. That's forgiveness. And so each emotion is reflective of a different thread in the perceptual constructs that we have. So we're going to just pick one at a time. In this case, we're going to use the fear thread.
Okay.
And so that would be the thought. So now I'm going to remember to do that that other emotion or any other emotion, a separate worksheet.
Okay.
And then we'll just step into hostility and fear are from internal corrupt data. So when my mind is generating a perceptual construct that is accurate about what's happening in the actual world, you know, that Harvard research I talked about, 10,000 brain cells are firing, 10,000 measurable units of electrical activity happening in the brain, 9 bits of data go into perception. It's been estimated in that same time frame, which is about a 25th of a second, there are perhaps as many as 20 trillion bits of data in the actual world. So there's actuality, what's actually going on, and then there's my perceptual construct, my reality. And whenever the mind is using any form of hostility or fear, that means that my construct, the world that I'm seeing, is built out of data that's been corrupted.
Yes.
Now, if you're working on your computer and all of a sudden you're doing a calculation or whatever, and you get a warning, corrupt data, what just happened? Nothing your computer is telling you is going to be reliable. I'd offer that when hostility or fear is moving, nothing your mind is telling you is going to be reliable, and you want to collapse that. Now,
yes.
We live in a culture that says, oh, a little rage, a little fear never hurt anybody. Well, my offering is it's the only thing that could ever possibly kill us, and it's time for us to clean it up. So here's how you clean it up.
Okay.
So hostility and fear, if you're following along the worksheet, now we're down below step 1B, are from internal corrupt data and indicate my use of sustained incoherence to build this disturbing internal construct. So here I've got this construct in my mind that's painful to me. There's a psychologist, or pardon me, a physicist named David Bohm who coined this term sustained incoherence. David Bohm was a cohort of Einstein's. He actually worked in Einstein's laboratory. He actually worked on doing some of the math with which they developed the atomic bomb. He was a genius in many realms, and he also worked in the realm of psychological research. And in essence, here's David Bohm's definition of sustained incoherence. I deny that the thoughts that are corrupt in me are producing my pain. I've built a picture in my mind that my pain's caused by somebody else. I refuse to own that my pain is caused by my own thinking, so I'm going to keep thinking that way, all the while blaming everybody else. David Bohm's basic definition of sustained incoherence. And most of the world's living in sustained incoherence. Whenever you rely on your mind's hostility or fear constructs, you're in sustained incoherence. And it's nuts to live there. But, you know, most of the world is nuts. I mean, just take a look at what's going on. How crazy can it get? It's time for us to individually and collectively clean it up. So my denial causes my CBM. What is CBM? If you were to ask,
memory.
Carbon-based memory. Okay, you got that one. But for everybody else who's listening, carbon-based memory, if you asked a modern-day physicist to check out your body and tell you what it's made of, the base element in your structure is carbon. And that's where memory is stored. And there's no energy that passes through this energy system that isn't stored in this carbon-based memory system. Okay?
Yeah.
So here we are stuck in a construct out of carbon-based memory, and that goes against us living out of our true nature as love. The truth about each of us, you know, if you hold a newborn child and tap into their essence, the essence of human life is love. But if we've been loaded with all of this sustained incoherence and this generational insanity, we don't think of ourselves as love, and they sure didn't give us messages when they told us to go to the courtroom that we were love. Or when we stepped out that, you know, we were given insane ideas. And so what needs to happen is we each need to face that world of sustained incoherence in us and begin to clean it up. And that means cleaning up carbon-based memory, literally cleaning up on an atomic level the energetic patterns that are stored within the structure. And when I live in denial, and in this work, there's a very specific definition of denial. And denial is that either thinking or speaking as though something outside of me is the cause of what's moving inside of me. So when I say mad is moving inside of me, Bill made me mad. I'm now living in denial. I'm telling my mind it's not allowed to show me the truth, that this is my mad, because if I own it, I could throw it away. But if it's Bill's and caused by Bill, of course I can't. Yeah. So my denial causes my carbon-based memory to displace my experience of myself as my essence, love, and tells me the lie that this emotion, my emotions are caused by my trigger. Yeah. Now you notice that word trigger is underlined and in bold and in italics. Must be something important about it. Most everybody calls the triggers in their lives the cause. And so they live in a totally false construct driven by the goals based on believing that cause is out there. What we're looking to do is to step in here to clean that up, which is inside of us. So that denial blocks my awareness of myself as love and tells me the lie that my emotions are caused by somebody else. So now I'm going to look at what the story is I'm telling myself based in the first parts of number one. So my story, my reality is that your object of attention would be the teachers or a specific teacher involved?
I think it sort of became everything. I think in the end I took it on board and I did it for them. You know.
But we don't. Now we're switching issues. Yeah. We're switching out of. There's a specific emotion that I'm feeling. I've been hiding out in the cloakroom, and I've got this fear. And who am I telling a story about? Who's the object of attention? If I move from this specific to a general, well, you know, it's kind of like, well, like this and this and this. I just shifted out of the piece of work that I'm heading toward. So I want to stay on track with this specific situation. So is there a specific teacher that was involved in the scenario?
Yeah, there was, yeah.
Okay, let's put her name or his name in.
It was his name. His name's Mr. Bolger.
Okay, so number 1C would be Mr. Bolger.
Yes.
And if you were to describe what happened, how would you describe that? So my story, my reality is that Mr. Bolger,
well, found me out there.
Notice what's happening with your breath right now.
Yeah, it's difficult to speak. I'm hiding again.
Yeah. Well, what happens is the movement of breath is what moves mind energy in the system. And there's something that I don't want to look at and don't want to deal with. And you'll notice at the end of this sentence, there's a sentence and several other sentences in the worksheet. There's a reminder to breathe. Because when I shut my breath down, that's how I keep that stuff hidden. Literally, that's how I create an unconscious mind. So we want you to breathe. And tell me the story about Mr. Folger did.
Yeah, it found me in the corridor, took me into the classroom, and then spoke about it.
So called you up on the carpet, so to speak?
Yeah, in front of everybody, just sort of, you know, liar, whatever, all sorts of accusations. Because I just got sent out for talking or being busy or just not being naughty.
Right.
But anyway, there we go. But it happened every day, get out. 2 hours, 2.5 hours, every day.
Take a big breath. Let your shoulders move on that one. Yeah, let it open. Time for you to stop carrying that load of energy around. Time for forgiveness here. Okay, so then just jot that in and breathe. And then you'll notice that a little hand points over to the right. Now, all my life, my mind's been telling me that, you know, he was the problem. But then if I remind myself, if Mr. Folger is the one with the problem, why am I the one with the pain? Now, clearly in that situation, Mr. Folger had a problem. I mean, wasn't a very nice guy, wasn't a very conscious guy. But today, decades later, I'm carrying around pain. I want to recognize that this is mine and it's about me. It's not about him. He's got his own work to do.
Yes.
Okay. So then let's step into number 1D. The truth is, only my thoughts cause my emotional upset. So here I am in fear. What you want to do here is you want to identify the specific mind energy that you use to create this fear. And so the thought, and again, as with the emotions, you use a separate worksheet for each one, specifically related to the fear that you identified in number 1B, what's the thought that causes this fear in you? When you think this thought, it goes to fear.
Being told off.
Okay, so I'm going to be told off. Told off, embarrassed, centered out.
Yeah, judged.
Judged, okay. That's probably the word. There's the one with the energy. So I'm going to be judged. And then number 1E, is there a punishment thought toward Mr. Folger? If you went back that first time and you're standing there, what would you, if you'd have had the power, what would you as a young girl have said or done? You know, there are no consequences. You're there. You got permission to do whatever.
I would like to say that's not true. That's not true. Yeah.
Yeah, but with all that fear going on and the way you've been embarrassed, is there something maybe a little more that you might want to do to him? Breathe. Like I can easily imagine if that were me, that I might even be wanting to kick him in a certain part of the anatomy. Punishment.
Well, I was pretty powerless. It was pretty awful. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that,
he was quite scary. He used to cane children as well. And I watched him do that too to some other child. He was really quite a beast.
Yeah. So if you'd have had the power at that time, what would you have done to that beast?
Oh, taken that stick, hit him with a stick.
And you've used it. Okay. So there's your punishment thought.
That feels very good to say that. Sorry.
No, that's you're trying to move the energy. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So you're acknowledging a part of yourself you've been hiding from yourself, and that always feels good.
Yeah.
So I wanted to punish Mr. Folger by picking that stick up and using it on him.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then on yourself, was there a punishment thought toward yourself? Notice what's happening with your breath.
I know.
And shut this down.
I know.
So take a breath.
I know. You ask me the questions and I go all blank and because I'm hiding again. I'm going invisible.
There's your punishment thought, I'd suspect, toward yourself, is I have to just be invisible.
Yes.
I'm going to disappear.
Yes.
So that's what I'd put there for your punishment thought toward yourself.
Okay.
Yeah. And then once again, you'll see that hand points to a little box. And the box, most often the traumas that we hold are instilled in the mind and accompanied by words.
Yes.
So verbal release can be a powerful way. Words are representative of mind energy. Verbal release can be a powerful way of starting to cause that energy that's perhaps been held for decades to exit carbon-based memory. So this little box introduces the idea of verbal release. I want to start to tap into the presence of love in me and be in a willingness space to take all of this accumulated energy. And what tends to happen when we have an experience, at the age of 4, is we tend to play that out. We'll see at the end here. We tend to play that out over and over and over and over and over again our whole lives. Yes. And the whole idea of this forgiveness process is to put an end to that cycle, especially the self-punishment.
I still do that. I work at a school, and I always assume if the head wants to speak to me, I'm going to get told off. I always feel judged by my peers for not being good at my job. It still carries on. And even last night, a friend wanted to chat about their problem, but I thought I was going to get told off. So
it's developed an expectation, a structure where there's an expectation of being abused. Yeah. So what I'm going to suggest you do when we finish this, or once the video is available, is you go back and you start making notes. There's a worksheet thing that we call a hydra. And if you remember in Greek philosophy, the hydra was the creature that when you cut her head off, a dozen other heads grew out of the stump where you cut the head off. And what you just shared with us is this is a hydra worksheet for you. You just shared 2 or 3 places where it's shown up in your life. So these would be good worksheets for you to do. So I'd suggest you sit down and rewatch this video. We'll stay focused on this worksheet, but you rewatch this video and go through each time. Do a worksheet on what happened last night with that coworker and how your mind set it up. Do worksheets on how you've been treated at school as an adult, and they'd each be the hydra worksheets that'll help you to clear this whole thing up.
Did it? I did write it down on paper, but then I couldn't keep up with it all.
So first of all, it's yourself.
Yes, I
say. And use your name. I release and surrender myself, my name, and use your name.
I release and surrender myself, Sarah, to love.
To love. Yeah. And then the emotion was fear.
I release and surrender fear to love.
Yeah. And then number 1C was Mr. Folger.
Oh, Mr. Folger, yeah. I release and surrender Mr. Folger to love.
Okay. And I release and surrender the story.
I release and surrender the story to love.
Well, be more specific. Repeat what the story was, what you wrote in there.
Okay. I release and surrender being collared in the cloakroom and told off, I release that to love.
Yeah, and being brought up in front of the classroom
and humiliated, really humiliating.
Yeah.
But
So I release that.
Yeah.
I'm going to let that humiliation go.
Release and surrender that humiliation.
Yeah. Because notice that your mind's still playing out that humiliation on yourself. And notice, this is another piece of the puzzle. It moves in a different direction. In our codependence work, we introduce a concept of what we call a power person. And 3 things happen to develop a power person dynamic. And when these 3 things happen simultaneously, and it's usually a child, and it's oftentimes with an adult or an authority figure, but can also happen in adulthood. But the 3 things that happen is that 1, the person we're going to identify as the power person, we're going to talk about instilling a power person dynamic in our minds. The person who's going to be the power person, number 1, is not functioning as love, has more power over my life than I do, and I perceive it as survival, physical or psychological survival, maybe even financial survival. They can be the dynamics. So when those 3 things happen, they got more power than I do, they're not functioning as love, and I perceive it as survival. What happens is, as an energy field, when you realize this body-mind unit's an energy field, the energy field opens wide, and it becomes like a sponge, and it literally just sucks in every energy from the environment. Literally every mental energy, every emotional energy, everything that's going on is literally just taken in with no censoring. In the future, that becomes the control of our behavior. And I'd offer that this power person dynamic is what runs the world. And until we confront it, understand it, and work through it in ourselves, it will run virtually every moment of our lives. And here's how it runs it. Once a power person dynamic is instilled, and it sounds like that was a moment for you where that was instilled, there are only 3 behaviors that we'll do for the rest of our lives. And they'll be based on that power person dynamic. Now, this thing with Mr. Bulger might have been a reflection of something earlier with perhaps a parent. I don't know. Yes. But it really doesn't matter. But this is the dynamic. And the behaviors that we'll do will be controlled by the level of stress that we're under. When there's no stress, there's a thing in the mind, we do a course called Laws of Living, and we identify what we call the automatic decision system. When the automatic decision system kicks in and there's no stress, I'll do whatever I did to get along with my power person. When stress starts to build, I'll move out of doing what I did to get along with them, and I'll do what I did to resist and survive with them. When I become ultra stressed, I'll do what my power person did to me that I hated the most. It runs the world. And so I ask you the question, have you ever found yourself, when you're under stress, humiliating people?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I turn it outward and do it to other people.
Okay.
I don't know. I'll have to think about that one, because obviously I do have to do classroom management as well, because I work at a school.
Right. So do you ever find yourself using any humiliation tactics to keep control in the classroom? Which means when I feel like I need to be in control is when I'm under stress?
Well, yeah, I suppose it's culturally acceptable to say, we talk about children's silly behaviour. Yes, silly behaviour. At first I found that quite offensive when I first started at the school, but because we all identify silly behaviour as silly, I now speak about silly behaviour. But at first I found it quite, because obviously I would have been called silly, as well as stupid and all sorts of words like that. I never called a child stupid, but we do commonly talk about silly behaviour.
Well, maybe you'll be the one that changes the norm in that whole system and honors children more, because every behavior a child does is done in order to accomplish a goal. And when we can support the child and their behaviors that we consider to be silly or abhorrent or unacceptable, the child is doing them for a valid purpose.
Yeah.
And when we can validate the child and open the space of safety and bring love present, then they can forgive what's in them. That which is in them can be removed, and they'll step up to the plate and become totally different beings.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it's about creating that space of safety and healing. And most of us don't ever look at these power person dynamics because when they happened, it wasn't safe to look or deal with it.
I think the behaviour I do to other people is to ignore them and zone them out. So I make them invisible if I'm upset with them. I'll avoid them.
Yeah. So notice that in that whole situation, what you did to yourself was become invisible in that power person dynamic. The thing that you hated the most was what he did that brought you to invisibility. And now you're treating other people as though they're invisible.
Yes. Yes.
As opposed to, you know, what somebody who's in pain really needs is somebody to be there with them.
Yes. And
somebody that's a human being that is the active presence of love and is able to interact with them and hold the space that supports them in working through whatever's going on. I mean, that's the thing that's so desperately needed in our culture. And I don't care whether it's, you know, the guy who was just the president of the United States. You know, I wouldn't want to live in that man's body. When I listen to the language, the words, the things that he does, I think of, oh my God, that man is in so much pain. And he doesn't have anywhere where he can open that up and heal. And so he just keeps carrying on the power person dynamic in his life. And that's what virtually everybody's doing. And what we need are people who are empowered enough to be able to be the space and support the cleaning up of this mass insanity that's running our culture. So starting with the kids, a powerful place to do it.
Okay.
Cool. Sweet. All right, so let's move on to number 2.
Oh, okay.
So what I'm going to do now, so I've done that verbal release. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to acknowledge that if my mind's lying to me, I'm more interested in the truth than my mind's lie. And so in doing that, I'm ready to embrace everything that's in me, whether it's my own experience or generational patterns. I'm willing to embrace those things and begin to move through it. So number 2 starts out with an acknowledgement of that. And so I choose to love truth. And actually, you could scratch that word love and change it to honor truth. That's a change we've made in the worksheet. That should really be honor. I choose to honor truth and willingly face and process out all disease-producing energies for or from all of my relations or all of my generations. And I actually kind of took that out of the Native American teachings on healing. And they have a phrase, you know, if a Native American person is going into a sweat lodge or a healing ceremony, they'll stop at the door of the sweat and they'll say, Matakwiasan. And Matakwiasan means for all of my relations. That I realize I'm not doing this healing process just for me, but as I enter into this sweat, I'm willing to take on the burdens from all of my generations and literally energetically become the space. Right now, there's some processing happening for me. If you were to look at, if you can see it on the camera, I don't know if you can, but the hair on my arms and my legs is standing up because for me, this is reaching a whole new level of the recognition of the willingness that I'm ready to, and we can all take on the energetic traumas of our generations and be the space for healing that. Because there's so many generations that went before us that didn't have a clue what to do about it. So with sincerity, I join you in saying that I'm willing to take on these generational patterns. And then number 1B, I'm willing to go through the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms of healing.
Yes.
So when I realized that this energy system has been in development for thousands of generations, when a disintegrative quality of energy came into my structure, it created symptoms. And if I've adapted and shut that down and I have my fifth of scotch so I don't have to look at it and I do my little bit of rage or trauma and I don't have to look at those things, I hide that from myself. Now I'm ready to reverse the flow of energy. Instead of pouring trauma in and trying to keep it shut down, I'm willing to embrace it. I'm willing to let it open and move on every level that it can open and move. And there are basically 3 levels on which healing happens. And this is one of the reasons why literally our whole Western world has become drugged, because we don't want to deal with what's in here. And the drugs are used to shut those things down. So now I want to open and literally visualize my whole energy field right down to my genes being able to open. And I'm willing to embrace and go through those energies. And on a physical level, healing looks like any kind of physical symptom you've ever had and low energy. On a mental level, looks like any kind of negative thought you've ever had and confusion. On an emotional level, looks like any kind of negative feeling you've ever had and depression. So they're the kinds of things, and that's what I was talking about with the gentleman earlier in his question of dropping into those things. Am I willing to open my field and embrace and move through those things?
Yes.
And so this is just a request that you acknowledge that and step into willingness.
Okay. I, Sarah, am willing to go through the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms of healing.
Good. Okay. Number 3. So I'm in the space of willingness. Now I want to look at what the key driver is for this pain perception. So my desire, the constructive result, the exact goal that drives my pain perception is that I want, number 1, see my trigger 2. So if you were to go back, you're standing there at the front of the room, Mr. Bolger's doing his thing. If you were to be able to just put a halt on that whole scene and say, Mr. Bolger, right now, what I'd really like from you is, what would that be? I'm going to go back and be that young child.
To teach me, because I couldn't read. I just got sent out all the time. Yeah. Okay.
So then, so now this is the goal that drives perception. So in essence, what I hear is that what you were looking for was support rather than rejection and criticism.
Yes.
So each time you do a worksheet, you want to look at what's the constructive result. You can't, a worksheet won't work with what you don't want. It's like, most people, if they thought of that, would say, well, Mr. Bolger, I don't ever want you to do this to me again. That won't get you there. It's, Mr. Bolger, what I really need, what I really want is for you to teach me and support me in what needs to happen. And think of those kids in school that they say are silly. You know what they're asking for?
Attention.
Support and teaching. Yeah, exactly the same thing. So then write that in number 6 or number 3.
Yes.
Constructive result, and make sure you breathe.
Which there's 2 gaps. Something might trigger something.
So you're in number 3. My desire, the constructive result. It should just be one blank there.
Yeah, I didn't read the whole sentence. My desire, the constructive result, the exact goal of the drives of my pain perception is that Mr. Bolger, my trigger. I'm confused now, sorry.
Okay, so Mr. Bolger is your trigger. And what's what did I want from him? I wanted support and caring.
Yeah, support. Yeah. Because one time he told me off for having a reading age of 8 when I was thinking, well, just help me. Don't tell me off for it. It's not my fault.
What are you here for?
You're the teacher.
Yeah,
help me.
Yeah.
I mean, tell me off for being naughty, but don't tell me off for not being able to read.
Right. So how many times those children that your culture has taught you to think about as silly, that's really what they're asking for. That's really
they're asking for support. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then that would be your answer. That would be the goal.
Yes.
That's the core of this worksheet.
Yes.
Okay. Now, before we step into doing what it takes to can't collapse the pain perception here, what I want to do is tap into and bring forward the presence of active love.
Okay.
If you hold a newborn child and you tap into the essence of that newborn, you'll notice that the newborn is love. And if you ask yourself the question when you're holding the newborn, is the newborn loving me? You have to say, no, the newborn isn't loving me. The newborn is love. That's the essence of that newborn. And then recognize that's the essence of you and I. That's what each of us are. That's the truth of us. So I want to bring that essence forward here in number 3. So I choose love, my essence, which then stirs the love in everyone involved.
Yes.
If I get lost in my pain and trauma through resonance, literally, there's a camera called the Delaware camera that literally can take a picture of the high energy waves that leave the mind when we think a thought. If I'm in my trauma, what tends to happen? If I'm a teacher who's been traumatized as a kid, and I stand in front of a classroom, and this child's in trauma, I'm in trauma, then I'm going to tend to resonate more of that in the child. And what I want to do is I want to heal those dynamics in myself so that I can stand as a space of active love. And I like to tell a story. You'll see at the end of that sentence there's the rose and the butterfly. It's illustrative of the point. Let's imagine that we give the rose and the butterfly an ego. We introduce them, they meet, they fall in love. They have this wonderful time together. And one day the butterfly up and flies away. What happens to the rose when it uproots itself to give chase?
It'll die.
It dies. Why does it die?
Uprooted
it dies
itself.
because it made something more important than being connected to its source.
Yes, that's nice.
Your source, my source, is love. If we make anything else more important, then we uproot ourselves from the truth of who we are, and we live in a whole false construct of self. If you go back to the Aramaic language, you hear this man Yeshua saying, in order for you to live, you've got to die. That false self that we've identified with from our disconnected state, uprooted from love, we've created this false self. Oh, I'm strong, I'm powerful, I'm good enough, I'm all these crazy things, and there's no connection to the truth of who we are. So you want to start to tap in more and more and cultivate your relationship with yourself as active love.
Yes.
So the objective of this step 3 is to bring love present into the process, or step 4, pardon me. And then in step 5, now we're going to do the action steps. 5A, and basically this is kind of a review of the whole process. When upset, my perception, my mind's construct is built of corrupt data driven by my goal, number 3, the goal to be cared for by Mr. Folger. It is a limiting structure constructed from a max of 9 bits of data out of 10,000 brain cells firing. By canceling my goal, my replicate mind, and that's this carbon-based memory system can only replicate what's in it, my replicate mind's reality collapses. So by canceling the goal, my replicate mind's construct collapses and gives me direct contact with the underlying denied and dissociated parts of my carbon-based memory, which projects and blames others for its content. So here's the action step. Back, I'm tapping into the presence of love. The more powerfully love is present, the deeper the internal processing will go. While holding love conscious, active, and present, I now choose to collapse my mind's lies by willingly canceling my goal for Mr. Bolger to teach, support, and hold love for me.
Yes.
And breathe. and notice that you've drawn yourself a whole community of people that are right here holding you in that space and supporting you in this process that you're doing.
Yes.
Nice work. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, thank you.
You must have really been ready for this. That's awesome.
Yes, I think I am. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So I'm canceling that goal.
Yeah.
And then there's a second part to it. When you realize that, this 9-bit construct, underlying it might literally be, to really develop, a picture my mind constructs of all this world that I think is out there that's really a construct from in here. It's a mass, maybe trillions of bits of data. And I have what we metaphorically call a 9-bit mind, 9 bits of data going on here. How long is it going to take me to process through these trillions of bits of data, doing it 9 bits at a time? It's like, good luck, it's never going to happen. Well, 2,000 years ago, Yeshua taught that inside of us, there was an elemental force. An elemental force that was feminine in nature, that if we invited it into activity, in our modern language, we would maybe call it the super processor. So, but literally, each one of us, inside of us, there's this capacity, there's this elemental force. In Aramaic, it was called Ruka Dekudsha. It's feminine, and by definition, and you'll see the definitions down at the bottom of the page, look at Ruka Dekudsha, she who undoes the effects of my errors and teaches me the truth. So when I'm ready to collapse this construct that I've been holding on to tightly because I think it's survival and I think it's who I am, when I'm ready to let it go, and I'm ready to invite this elemental force into activity, what I'll find is there's an energy that starts to move in me that is not of my human nature, that is not something I can even comprehend. But if I'm willing to move, if I'm willing to be with it, it literally will begin to undo these unconscious structures. And if I'm in a space of listening, it will start to instruct me. That's Ruka Dekudsha in Aramaic.
Yeah.
There's a power in us, literally, that energetically has contact with the whole world. And if we'll let ourselves be in touch with it, it's been called intuition. If we'll let ourselves be in touch with it, it will explain anything and everything to us. So here's the invitation. You're inviting that power to go to work in you in step number 5B.
Yes. So
I invite, and whatever term you would use, the Greek scriptures translated these words, Ruka Dekudsha is the Holy Spirit. It doesn't have anything to do with some disembodied spirit being. It literally is a feminine elemental force inside of us that is never going to violate our free will. We can keep it shut away, or we can invite it into activity, and literally you will begin to be taught things that are so specific it will boggle your mind.
Yeah.
So this is a space to invite Ruka into activity. And there's a blank there. You'll see the Aramaic Ruka Dekudsha. Down below you can see the definition. But I usually, when I do a worksheet, I just short form this to I invite Ruka. And there's several things we suggest you invite that elemental force in you to do. One, to incline me toward healing. Like most people, like, I'm in my drama and trauma, and that's how I win, and don't talk to me about that healing stuff. I need this rage to protect me. Well, I'm shifting that. I want support from underneath to incline my mind toward healing, to restore me to my newborn essence, love. And you'll see a hand points over to Rahma, that when that's restored, there's a filter in the frontal lobes of the brain that opens up and literally is the gateway that our created essence love enters this human form. So I'm asking for support in being restored to that newborn essence, which is love. I'm being asked to heal my denial and my capacity to generate the emotion. If you go up to number 1B, it was fear. You want to transfer that down here. I'm going to ask to be empowered to free myself of even the capacity to generate fear, no matter what happens in my world. Fear narrows the perceptual constructs of the mind and leaves us in corrupt data. So I'm asking for help to eradicate that from my life and from my bloodline. And then I asked to help an open, direct, conscious relationship with and gently remove the denied and dissociated parts of my carbon-based memory. So there's several things, and you know, it's a big mouthful the first time you do it, but there's several things over time that you'll see that you'll start to get assistance. And these things just starting to shift, like, gee, I didn't even do anything, and here's this change. And that's the power of this worksheet process. So how about just reading through that? I invite, and you know, in, say, for instance, AA groups, it's called the higher power, whatever term you have for it.
Well, I'll have a go with Ruka. I invite Ruka Dakuta. Sorry, I've got to turn the pace. To incline me towards healing, to restore my what's a Rachma filter, and my gateway to the frontal lobes to maintain love, my newborn essence, heal my denial and capacity to generate the emotion of fear.
Okay. And help me to open.
And help me to open a direct, conscious relationship. And gently remove the denied, dissociated, and projected parts of my carbon-based memory.
Now, the first time you do it, that's a big mouthful. Once you get used to it, it'll roll pretty easily. So you've done two things now. I've canceled my goal from Mr. Bulger to be of support and to be caring. And now I'm asking to clean up all the internal dynamics that I've created in my life around this. And let yourself take a breath and just be with that. And as you do, how do you feel?
Yeah, I do feel lighter.
Lighter, okay. So then in the next step, I now feel
lighter.
And then when I think back to this situation in number one with Mr. Bulger, how does that look to me now?
I do feel bigger and taller and more able, more visible.
Awesome. Nice shift. So go ahead and make a note of that. That's powerful.
Yes. I might redo the worksheet when I watch back the thingy, the replay, because I've sort of written things down in a weird way, and I can't. It's much more difficult to write things when you're on the call than when you're watching.
Well, and you're in one of your issues. Here you are on the spot.
Yeah.
So on the issue that you're working on is here you are, the one that's doing this whole process for everybody, and you know, being out there. So I understand that, and that's a nice shift to get, especially, you know, being right out there on the spot with that being your issue. That's really powerful.
Yeah.
I like that your language was so clear. It's like, I feel bigger. You're moving beyond the perceptions of a small child into the perception of an adult, into a different construct, and that's life-changing.
Yes.
Nice. Cool.
Thank you.
Okay, and then the next step, seeing how now you're looking at that particular goal and how it's impacted your life.
Yes.
You want to look at a time when you perhaps have violated that goal, when someone else wanted your love and support, and instead you did something different. So the last part.
That's probably my mum then. I've probably not been supportive to my mum while she's had all her operations.
Okay. So I'm going to write that down then, when I've not fulfilled the goal of being supportive, and that's been with mom. And as you say that, what feeling comes with that?
Oops, sorry. Well,
breathe.
It is a little bit anger as well. I'm withholding it on purpose to be a bit punishing, really.
Yeah.
Because she could have done something about it, but she never did either. So I think I get my own back.
Yeah. So here's your Hydra. So this I'd offer is one of your next worksheets.
Yeah.
is to do one on Mom.
Yeah.
And how you wanted her to do something and she didn't. That'll be the next one to do.
Okay.
That'll be another piece of the puzzle. And then the final step, step 7. A principle of the universe is that by giving, I first get the original. So I want to tap into gratitude, as Yinka has shared with us in the opening, when the groups get together to share something we're grateful for. There's been a lot of research done on the healing power of gratitude. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to heal. I choose truth and perfect love. We spoke about it in step 2. I want to honor truth. Once again, I'm reminding myself that whatever my constructs are, if they're not based in love, it's a lie, it's corrupt data. And I'm willing to go for the truth. I'm willing to always be in the flow of love through me. In fact, the best definition that I've been able to come up with in 50 years of developing this work is that life is love flowing through a cell. Anything that we do to inhibit love flowing through our cells is a step in the direction of self-annihilation.
Yes.
And so I want to tap into that flow and be in that flow. Truth and perfect love. There's a corresponding filter to Rachma that's in the frontal lobes of the brain in Aramaic. There's a second filter over the perceptual part of the mind called Kuba. The two filters together were called perfect love. And you remember they said perfect love casts out fear. This again is a powerful psychological statement of truth. When Rachma and Kuba are set, it doesn't matter what you're facing in your world, your mind can't produce a fear-based reality. It's not possible. And that means that you're always in touch with the highest levels of intelligence possible for a human being, no matter what's going on in your world, if you're aware that you want to keep those two filters set. So that was called perfect love in Aramaic. So I want to tap in and acknowledge truth and perfect love. And then I'm talking now to the object of the worksheet, number 1C, Mr. Bolger. Mr. Bolger, based on number 3. So I'm going to do this goal setting. I'm going to set a goal toward him based on this goal that I'm dealing with of wanting to be supported by you and taught by you. I'm going to structure a truly loving goal toward you and offer you this. So now, I don't know, maybe Mr. Bolger's dead and gone. It doesn't really matter. But in your mind, is there something that anytime you think of him, you're willing to offer him? And or if you happen to walk down the street and meet him on the street, instead of the old energy that probably would have been claws out, what goal would you be willing to have toward him?
A smile. I will offer him a smile.
Yeah, nice. Nice. And notice when you do a smile what it does to your chemistry.
Yeah.
I get the original, they get the carbon copy. That's why Yeshua taught, have Rachma when you think of neighbor. And interestingly enough, in the Aramaic language, the word neighbor means anybody that you think about. It's not a physical word. It doesn't mean the guy down the block. The word neighbor literally means anybody that you think about. Anybody mentally near to you is your neighbor. And if you choose to stay connected to love, you've given yourself the gift of maintaining your human life. Whatever anybody else is, the worst person in the world, if you were facing them, you want to maintain your human life. You do that by maintaining Rachma, perfect love. And you're at your most intelligent, you're most capable.